What's up? KD Bo here. Glad to be with you. I know it's been a minute. I haven't talked to you, man, for a couple of weeks, few weeks here. But I'm glad to be back to kind of share with you. And my goal is to just kind of make sure that we move forward, that I'm more consistent with these. Because I always have something to share with you, but just sometimes I get so caught up in the building that I don't take time to kind of share about what's going on. But today I want to talk to you about a word called legacy. All right? Legacy. Legacy is what is handed off by a predecessor. Legacy. Legacy is not just you, not just what concerns you. Legacy is about what you're giving to not even just your children, but to your grandchildren, your great-grandchildren. What legacy are you leaving? Are you legacy-minded? If you're legacy-minded, you can't just floss and just spend all of who you are and what you have on yourself. If you're legacy-minded, you really are thinking about someone else. And I think that is whether you have, quite frankly, children or not. If you're thinking about somebody else, other generations, other impartations, when people think about you, what did you leave this world that they can benefit from? Put it like this. How did the world benefit from your existence? That's your legacy. And I would venture to say that there are only two categories of legacy. And that is either you can be a burden or you can be a blessing. When generations think about you, will they be reeling from the fact that you died and you ain't had no life insurance? They had to do a GoFundMe to bury you, and mama suffered and she struggled, and then, man, that caused me to have my own challenges because of this and then that, and then just the whole rabbit hole that happens because you didn't set them up with a legacy, at least financially, okay? Or will they be blessed by the blessing of you, meaning he left life insurance, all right? He made sure that we were good before we died. He saved, and there were times in which he had 401k on his job, and he could have dipped into it, but he didn't because he knew he was not just thinking about his current situation. He was thinking about the grandchildren, thinking about the children. And the truth is, one of my challenges with this culture, black folks, I'm black, there you go, so I can talk about us, is that we do a whole lot of flossing. And that's new. That's this culture. That's this generation. Because generations before, they really were legacy-minded. How many of us had college money because grandparents and them saved? How many of us live in houses that grandparents and people before great-grandparents, they had a little something. Either you sold the house or you're living in it or whatever. They didn't just think about themselves. I was listening to something that Buster Suarez said, Pastor Suarez in New York. He was talking about his grandmother and how they thought she was broke and she didn't have any money and all of this stuff. And when she died, because she was a caretaker. She, cleaned houses and all this stuff. And she never really had the best clothes and, what have you, working with white folks, cleaning up behind them. They just knew that they were going to have to raise some money. He was like, no, she had real estate. She had houses. She had, money saved up because she wasn't just doing all of that for herself. She was legacy-minded. And so, do you not think that Dr. Martin Luther King Jr. would have loved to be Netflixing and chilling with Coretta Scott and the King and the kids and what have you, whatever Netflix, the version of Netflix of that day was? You don't think he would rather have done that? The civil rights icons of the past? They would have much rather loved to be doing something else. But because they were legacy-minded, they were thinking about what will generations look like because of my presence, because I am doing something that's going to impact other generations. When you're legacy-minded, you think about that. Proverbs 13:22 talks about a good man leaves an inheritance for his children's children. Not just his children, his children's children. Are you thinking about the job that you're on, the house, the monies that you're spending right now? Are you thinking about your grandchildren? Or are you just thinking about right now? If you're legacy-minded, it is important that every single thing that you do, you got to know and understand, yeah, man, no, this ain't going to look good on future generations. Even the choices that you make, Stay or not stay? Are you legacy-minded? Is it worth it to fight through the marriage and the troubles and the temptations and all that kind of stuff that you go through as a man just to make sure that you show your son and you show your daughter what manhood looks like, what being a good husband looks like? Because they're watching you. Let me tell you something. A man's value is so potent that in his absence and in his presence, he makes an indelible impression that cannot be erased. Your absence or your presence. So when I say you got to make a decision about the kind of legacy you're going to leave, either you're going to be a burden or you're going to be a blessing. Choose, because if you don't choose, it's going to be chosen for you. So what I'm saying to you is to be intentional, be deliberate, be specific about what it is that you want and make your life in alignment with those decisions and those choices. But it is important that we become legacy-minded. You got to think about somebody beyond yourself. Other cultures do it. And, you know, and it's not to beat up on black folks, but I'm going to call it what it is. And if we can do better, we should. Hey, our generations, our previous predecessors did it. So why can't we do it? Because there's a lot of selfishness that goes on in this culture. Call it social media, call it whatever. Call it just the climate. But it is important that if we're thinking about being legacy-minded, then it's not just about your comfort. It's not just about what you feel like doing. If you really are concerned about making sure that your grandchildren are good, then that demands sacrifice. It demands discipline. But if you're going to be any kind of man that Proverbs 13:22 says about leaving an inheritance for your children's children, for your grandchildren, you got to become that person. I'd venture to say it's one of the greatest decisions that you could ever make. What kind of legacy? And you need to answer this. You need to answer this. Your life as is lived right now. What kind of legacy are you leaving for generations after you? And you have to answer it. It's so important. So July 21st, I want you to meet us at New Life Church in Decatur because we're going to go into detail with this. The founder of Fathers Incorporated, Kenneth Braswell, is going to be joining us. And he's talking about, making sure that you are sound in your legacy, sound in your thinking. What's your money look like? Huh? We're going to have money specialists there, financial advisor specialists there that's going to be able to make sure that you make the best decisions, not just for you and your household, not just for 2018, 2019, 2020, but to make sure that when your grandchildren think about you, Grandpa you, that they're going to be like, what a blessing. What a blessing. So I'm going to dig into that a little bit more. Just follow us if you haven't done it already, 54244. And even this video, share it with somebody that you know you want to hear this message or even join us on July 21st at New Life Church in Decatur for our next Man Up Live. Okay? Love you, bruh and sis that's peeking in. Man up.